I'm going to go with a Sharks win.
We made it up.
I'm going to go with a Storm win.
It's false.
So I'm going to go with a Dragons win.
Not a chance.
I'm going to be pretty confident with a Roosters win.
You're wrong.
I'm going to go with a Eels win.
We made this one up.
So, first of all, recapping this week. 3 out of 8. It's not really good, is it? I like to think that sometimes looking at form, looking at previous games, looking at stats, using your brain, putting faith in the Dragons are a good idea. Won't be doing those again. So the Raiders and the Broncos and the Panthers must have watched the video and thought, right, well, Rob said we're going to win, so we might as well. Clearly, the Dolphins didn't, because they had the absolute nerve to go ahead and play well against the Sharks. Who does that? So now that we've got all that out of the way, I'm very calm. I'm very composed. I'm ready for an 8 out of 8 week. So, without further ado, let's get started. Starting with Melbourne Storm at home versus the Brisbane Broncos. Melbourne Storm's form in the last 5, they won 3 of those games. At home, they've won 3 out of the last 5 as well. Last week, they lost to the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and they currently sit in 6th place. They have a 79% completion rate this season, and a tackle efficiency of 87.9%. They have scored an average of 20 points per game and conceded an average of 19. The spine this week will include Meaney, Munster, Hughes, and Grant. There are no players out from last week, and in terms of players coming in, there's Moiroa, Nikarima, Kamikamitha, and Wishart that come back into the squad. Looking at the Broncos, their form, they've also won throughout the last 5 games. Their away form is 5 out of 5 wins. They won last week against the Manly Seagulls, and they currently sit in 1st place. They have a 76% completion rate, a tackle efficiency of 88.1%. Average points for is 26, and average points conceded is only 17. The spine this week is the usual with Walsh, Mam, Reynolds, and Walters. There are no new players out this week, and coming in is Piacora, Madden, Palacia, and Willison. For me, I cannot understand why Storm are favourites. Maybe because they're at home. Maybe. I don't know why Bet365 has looked at it that way. For me, this is actually quite clear in terms of the winner here, and that's the Brisbane Broncos, 13+. It's a bold claim to go with 13+, I understand that, but their away form is 5 out of 5. The points that they get for and only concede, they're in 1st place. They're strong last week, dominant, and Storm were just not good enough. So Broncos win 13+. Moving on to the Canterbury Bulldogs at home versus the New Zealand Warriors. The Warriors are 2.5 point favourites on Bet365. Starting with the Bulldogs, their form, they've won 1 out of the last 5, and at home they've won 2 out of the last 5. They lost to the Raiders last week in a good effort, nearly coming back. They're in 15th place currently. They have a completion rate of 74% and a tackle efficiency of 87.5%. In terms of average points for is 17 and average points against is 25. The spine this week will include Perham, Reynolds, Burton, and Marnie. In terms of players out the squad this week, you have Casey and Hughes, and players coming into the squad, Wilson, Topine, Adokar, Morin, Flanagan, and Sutton. So Adokar is a huge addition. Moving on to the Warriors, their form is also 1 win out of the last 5, and away record is also 2 out of the last 5. And they lost to the Panthers last week. It was a decent effort. I think they're unfortunate not to get more out of the game. They're currently in 11th place. They have an 81% completion rate, a tackle efficiency of 88.8%. Average points for is 18 and average points conceded is 19. The spine this week will include Nickel Klokstad, Volkman, Johnson, and Egan. Players out include Cossey and Ford, and players in is Leotoa, Sirenen, Going, Berry, Volkman, and Vilea. For me, I can easily go with the Warriors being favourites here. I think I like what the Bulldogs have done. I think there's definitely a major improvement from last season, but the same with the Warriors. And as I said, I think they're unfortunate not to get more out of the game. I do see the Warriors being clear favourites on this, not by a huge margin, but I'm going to go with the Warriors win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Penrith Panthers at home versus the Sydney Roosters. Panthers are 5.5 point favourites on Bet365. And starting with them, their form, they've won 3 out of the last 5, and home form, they've won 2 out of the 4 that they've played. Sometimes if it shows less than 5 for the home or away form, that's either they've been on a bye or a neutral stadium, or they actually haven't played 5 home or away games yet. So they've won 2 out of the last 4 home games. They won last week against the Warriors, and they sit in 3rd place currently. They have a completion rate of 80%, a tackle efficiency of 89.7%, 22 points for on average, and 13 points against on average. Spine this week is Edwards, Luai, Cleary, and Kenny, so the usual. Players out, there is no one from the squad, and players in, there's Cogger, Henry, Martin, and Jenkins. Looking at the Roosters, their form, they've only won 2 out of the last 5, and their away record is 1 out of 4. They lost last week to the Cowboys. It was an abysmal performance. They're in 8th place currently. They have a 75% completion rate, a tackle efficiency of 87.9%, 17 points for on average, and 19 points against on average. The spine this week is Tedesco, Manu, Keary, and Smith. Players out is Butcher, and players in there's Baker, White, Walker, May, and Katoa. For me, the Panthers weren't too impressive last week against the Warriors. The Warriors did actually play really well and were very strong defensively. The Roosters were all over the place. Maybe it was a thing with the weather. If the weather wasn't so bad, maybe they would have been more suited to it. But there's obviously more to it. It's not like an overall excuse. I don't like Manu at 6. I think you've actually just got to move on from that. It's not good enough. Walker needs to come back in. Manu is not a number 6. And he's a fantastic player, but he's not a number 6. I think you've just got to get Suwali on the wing, Manu back in centre, get Sam Walker back in the squad. He's in the reserves. I think they're just I think it's going to cost them big time here. Genuinely. So I'm going to go with a Panthers win quite comfortably, 13+. Next up, we have the South Sydney Rabbitohs at home versus the West Tigers. Rabbitohs are 15.5 point favourites from Bet365. And starting with the Rabbitohs, their form, they've won 5 out of the last 5. And at home, they've won 2 out of 3. They've only played 3 home games so far this season. They won last out against the Storm. They're in 2nd place currently. They have a completion rate of 74%, a tackle efficiency of 88.4%, 24 points for on average, and 15 points conceded on average, which is pretty damn good. The spine this week is Mitchell, Walker, Ilias, and Cook. There are no players out this week, and in terms of players in, there's Lovett, Hawkins, Mamazelis, and Kenner. Looking at the Tigers, their form, they've won 2 out of the last 5, 2-win streak currently. Away form is 1 win out of the last 4. They won last week against the Dragons. A fairly solid effort from the Tigers. They're still in 17th place currently though. They have a completion rate of 76%, a tackle efficiency of 89.1%, 15 points for on average, and 22 points conceded on average. The spine this week is Bullett, Waken, Brooks, and Coruscant again. No new players out this week, and in terms of players in, there's Laurie, Bateman, Bloor, and Riley. I have gone against the Tigers for 2 weeks in a row now, against the Panthers and the Dragons. For the sake of Tigers fans, I will continue to go against you. Because 1, it's a logical thing to do, and 2, let's see how much power I actually wield. So I'm going to go with a very comfortable Rabbitohs win of 13+. So congratulations, Tigers. Next up, we have the North Queensland Cowboys at home versus the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Cowboys are 6.5 point favourites on Bet365. And starting with them, their form, they've won 2 out of the last 5 overall. Home form, they've won 3 out of the last 5. They won last out against the Roosters and currently sit in 14th place. They have an 80% completion rate and an 86.4% tackle efficiency, 16 points for and 21 points against on average. The spine this week is Drinkwater, Dearden, Townsend, and Robson. Players out this week, there are none. Players in, there's Elliott, Bittengani, I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never heard of him before, so that's my effort. Price and Labert come into the squad. Looking at the Dragons, their form, they've won 0 out of the last 5. Away form is also 0 out of the last 5. They lost last week to the Tigers. They're in 16th place. They have a 77% completion rate, tackle efficiency of 85.7%, 20 points for and 23 points against on average. The spine this week is Sloan, Amon, Hunt, and Mbai. No players out this week, and in terms of players in, there's Liddle, Hunt, Fafita, and Musgrove. The Dragons looked at their best when Hunt went into 9 and Sullivan came into the halves. Why they haven't started with that, I do not understand. You are 0-5 in form, in general and away. Surely do something a little bit different. But no. Let's not do that. Let's get battered by the Cowboys, shall we? So I'm going to go with the Cowboys win. It's there for the Dragons to prove me wrong, because you let me down last week. But a Cowboys win, 13 plus. The Dragons are going to win this, aren't they? Next up, we have the Canberra Raiders at home versus the Parramatta Eels. The Raiders are 3.5 point favourites on Bet365. Starting with them, their form, they've won 4 out of the last 5 in general, and at home, they've won 3 out of 4. They won last out against the Bulldogs in a fairly close affair. I think they should have had another try as well, which wasn't given. They're in 9th place currently. They have a 78% completion rate, 87.4% tackle efficiency, 20 points for and 24 points against on average. The spine this week is Chris, Whiten, Fogarty and Wolford. Players out this week is Schiller and players in Hopewate, Hidawaya, Smith Shield, Peru and Mooney. In terms of the Eels, their form, they've won 3 out of the last 5. Away form is 1 out of 4. They lost to the Titans last week. They're in 13th place currently. They have a completion rate of 75%, a tackle efficiency of 86.5%, 24 points for and 21 points against on average. The spine this week is Gutherson, Brown, Arthur and Hodgson. Players out, Mitchell Moses. And players in, Assey, Rodwell, Dury, Ogden and Russell. I already didn't have much faith in the Eels. I was already leaning towards the Raiders before the squads came out, and then when I saw that Moses wasn't in it, it kind of confirmed that to me even more so. I was considering a 1-12 win, but I'm going to go with a 13 plus. Raiders win comfortably, 13 plus. Next up, we have the Newcastle Knights at home versus the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans are 1.5 point favourites on Bet365. Starting with the Knights, their form, they've won 1 out of the last 5. Their home record is 2 out of 4. They lost to the Eels last time out, but they're on a bye from the last round. They're in 12th place currently. They have a 74% completion rate and an 89.4% tackle efficiency, 19 points for and 23 points against on average. The spine this week is Miller, Ponga, Hastings and Crosland. Players out, there's only Mann. And players in, Elliott, Clune, Lucas, Tuala and Johns. Looking at the Titans, their form, they've won 3 out of the last 5. Their away form is 2 out of 5. They won against the Eels last time out, and they're in 7th place currently. Completion rate of 77%, a tackle efficiency of 86.3%, 23 points for and 24 points against on average. The spine this week is Campbell, Foran, Boyd and Randall. No new players out this week, and players in the shop, Isaac Fa'asumalawi, McIntyre and McKaylee. 1.5 points seems a little bit too narrow for me. Titans feel like clear, like unbelievably clear favourites. I've liked what the Knights have done, but the Titans have been pretty damn impressive this season, I've got to admit. And I've got to back them this week. I've got to. Hat-trick from my boy Alafiana Khan Pereira. I'm calling it now. So, Titans win, 13 plus. Finally, we have the Manly Seagulls at home versus the Cronulla Sharks. The Sharks are 5.5 point favourites on Bet365, and starting with the Seagulls, their form, they've won 2 out of the last 5 and 3 out of the last 5 at home. They lost last time out to the Broncos pretty convincingly. They're in 10th place currently. They have a 76% completion rate, tackle efficiency of 88.1%, 19 points for and 23 points against on average. The spine this week is Trebojevic, Johns, Cherry Evans and Croker. Players out this week, there are none. Players in to the squad is Schuster, Harper, Tuamalo Vega and Fainu. Hopefully I got that right. Sharks form at the moment is 3 out of 5. Away form is 3 out of 4. They lost to the Dolphins last week. They currently sit in 4th place. They have a 75% completion rate, a tackle efficiency of 88.8%, 28 points for on average, and 21 points against on average. The spine this week is Kennedy, Moyland, Hines and Brayley. No new players out this week, and players in, there's Tracy, Beryl, Colhoun and Hiroti. I feel like this should be a comfortable Sharks win. because I don't really have too much faith in the Seagulls right now. They are on a bit of a decline, I feel. It's not anything major. Trebojevic was barely noticeable last week. Wasn't really much control from Cherry Evans. Like, the squad on paper for the Seagulls is really strong, but it's just not. It doesn't have the same productivity, and it just doesn't feel as impactful as it was a few years ago. Like when they were in 4th place and putting up insane numbers. So I feel like the Seagulls are going to continue on that slope. I think the Sharks will bounce back. I'm going to put up a ridiculous scoreline. Like, the scoreline that you're about to see is going to be ridiculous. I don't genuinely believe it, but I'm just going to go with Sharks to win 13 plus, but not by that score. So to recap my predictions for this week: Broncos 13 plus, Warriors 1 to 12, Panthers 13 plus, Rabbitohs 13 plus, Cowboys 13 plus, Raiders 13 plus, Titans 13 plus, and Sharks 13 plus. In terms of the winning margins, very bold claims here. I understand that. I think Warriors 1 to 12, I think is fairly safe. Rabbitohs 13 plus, I think is safe, and Raiders 13 plus. They're the 3 games that I'm most confident with. The margins overall, I'm not entirely confident. It is difficult to predict because I predicted, like, for example, the Raiders, I predicted them to win 1 to 12 last week, which they did, but they were so far ahead in the first half they could have run away with it. So it's difficult to really sort of visualize how a team is going to just barrel away from someone else. But in terms of the 8 winners, I'm extremely confident with all 8 winners. Margins 50-50, but in terms of the winners, I think there's a solid 6 out of 8 to be had here, possibly 7, but I'm feeling that 8 out of 8 is genuinely possible. So let's see how that goes. So that's going to be it for this video. Just to let you guys know, I did release 2 videos yesterday, one on Queensland State of Origin squad and a New South Wales State of Origin squad with a twist. So slightly different criteria. But if you want to go check those out, they'll be linked in the description down below, or you can go and check the channel and you'll see the videos for yourself. They're the 2 other latest videos from this one. But yeah, let me know what predictions you'll go for this week. I apologise if I ruined anyone's bets, but I will be putting up some money this week, so we'll see how it goes. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.